And we are on air.
Hi guys, my name's Brianna and today I'm going to be giving you 10 book recommendations. So let's get right into the video. So if you've been watching my videos for a while now, you might recognize some of these because I have talked about a couple of them, but I've never formally given you guys book recommendations. That's what we're going to be doing today. And these aren't necessarily my top 10 favorite books. A lot of these are my favorite books, but I just picked 10 that I thought were important or good books that you guys would enjoy out of my personal book collection. So if I read a book but I didn't have it physically, that's not going to be in this. So let's get into it. So the first one, of course, is Our Chemical Hearts by Crystal Sutherland. This has been my favorite book for so long now. You would know that if you've been watching my YouTube channel for a while now, because I have spoken about this book for years now. But I don't know if I've ever gone in depth really about what it's about, other than when I compared the book to the movie, but that is filled with spoilers, so of course you're not going to watch that before you've read the book or seen the movie. So it's not my favorite book because of the storyline, it's my favorite book because of all of the incredible life lessons, beliefs, and just beautiful writing within it. There are so many aspects of this book that you could take completely out of the context of this book and be in awe of and amazed by and find and discover parts of yourself and your beliefs through. But for the purposes of this video, I will break down a little bit of the plot. This is going to sound like it's a huge spoiler, but I promise it's not. It happens right at the start of the book. It's not the plot of the book. It is just the precursor for the characters. So the main girl, Grace, she was dating this boy, and she was dating him since she was a little kid. They got in a car crash. She's severely injured. He died. The main boy in the book, Henry, he's never really dated anyone, never had a thing for anyone, and this is a love story about the two of them. I don't want to get too much more into it than that because it's kind of hard to get more into it without giving spoilers, but there are some pretty cool side characters as well. My favorite side character is Lola. She is one of Henry's best friends and she was his first kiss. And she is queer and she has a girlfriend throughout the book, so that's pretty interesting as well. Yeah, I don't know, I've always loved this book, and this is one of the only books I have that I have highlighted throughout and whatnot, and I've been revisiting it and re-highlighting and going through since early high school, so it's been many years now. But if you check it out, let me know, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's go to the next one. The next one is Out of Love by Hazel Hayes, which is the closest a book has ever come for me to beating out Our Chemical Hearts. I think storyline wise it is a better book, but I have so much personal connection and I love the beliefs and concepts in this book that this will remain my favorite book. But this is, I don't want to say a better book, but a really, really good book. I have spoken about this one before in videos as well. It is so beautiful. Every chapter can stand alone as its own individual short story. That's number one. Number two, the chapters can be read in order of like first to last or last to first. So every chapter can stand on its own and the book can be read forwards and backwards. It's incredible. I have read it both forwards and backwards, and sometimes I just pick it up and I just read one chapter. It is an incredible book. It's called Out of Love because the premise of it is you start at the end of the relationship. Right? So the first chapter is like when they're breaking up and all of that and their relationship's ending. And the last chapter is when they first meet and all of that. So you can read from the end of the relationship to the beginning or the beginning to the end. And it's really interesting to me because the conventional way of reading it is reading it from the end of the relationship backwards to the beginning. And that is such an interesting thing because you already know that they're broken up when you start the book, but when you get to the end, there's still this part of you that sees this love and this connection, and you're rooting for them even though you know they don't end up together. So it's really interesting, and this also has some queer stuff in it as well. There's a few chapters that are about the main character exploring their sexuality a little bit, and that's pretty interesting as well. Absolutely love it. The next book is Wonder by R.J. Palacio. I think that's how you say it. This book I read for the first time when I was in 8th 8th grade, and I connected so deeply with it. My family connected so deeply with it. Me and my mom and my brother went to go see it together in theaters when it first came out as a movie. If you've never heard of Wonder, it is about this family who has a son who has really severe medical issues, and he has to have surgeries and whatnot, and he looks different and he's bullied, and then he has an older sister who kind of feels invisible and out of touch with the family because Augie gets all the attention, and although she recognizes that he needs that attention, it still affects her. And my family connected with this book particularly because both of my brothers have medical issues and have had surgeries, and I'm like the older sister. It really captured maybe not the minutia, but the general themes and feelings that my family has gone through from everyone's perspective. So you can read this book and my mom can start to understand how I feel, and my brother can understand how my dad feels, and like all of that. So it's really personal for us, but it's also just standalone an incredible book. It covers so many important themes. It's one of the most age diverse books where I think it's super important for kids to read it, but also really important for adults and parents to read it as well. And even if your kid isn't old enough to read yet, it is perfectly fine for you to read with them. So that is really good as well. It's just, I absolutely adore this book and I definitely recommend it. And this one has a movie as well. So Our Chemical Hearts and Wonder have a movie. Out of Love does not, but it is what it is. Alright, my next recommendation is Maniac McGee by Jerry Spinelli. This is a book that I read when I was in 3rd grade with my dad. I think it was 3rd grade at least. I'm not entirely sure. We've read it a couple times since then as well, and he reads it with my brothers too. It's just a really special tradition in my family. Again, it's another book that is perfect for all ages, from kids to adults. Anyone can read this book. Especially it's great for parents to read with their kids because they can help teach them about important things. This book really goes over racism and highlights the issues and really makes you understand what the world was like and what the world can still be like at times, and changes that need to be made. And it's just a really important book and storyline. It does have a movie, but I don't remember much about the movie. The book was more important for me, so I don't know if it's any good or not. I would have to watch it again, but the book is incredible. I absolutely love it. I've read it many times in my life now, so definitely recommend it. Alright, the next is An Abundance of Katherines by John Green. I absolutely love John Green, and I could have put so many more books into this if I put multiple from the same author, but I decided I would just stick with one, and I think right now this is my favorite. It's incredibly interesting. It's about this boy who has only dated girls named Katherine basically in his life, and a particular spelling of it as well, and he was just dumped by his most recent girl named Katherine, and he's going on a road trip with his friend, and it is about all of their adventures and figuring out friendships and romance, and it's a really, really good book. I absolutely adore it. But I do just in general recommend John Green. He's fantastic, and he has movies for most of his books, but in general the books are always better than the movies. The only exception to that, where I would say they're actually equal, is Looking for Alaska, because it didn't actually get a movie. It got a limited series, so 1 season, and it's just like a really long movie basically. When I watched it almost all in 1 sitting, and it was incredible. I absolutely loved it, so I do recommend that as well, and that book as well. But for my official list of recommendations, I'm sticking with An Abundance of Katherines. Alright, we're halfway through now, but let's keep pushing. The next one is not a story, a fiction story. It's an informational book that is not for the younger ages, but I do really recommend. It's Doing It, Let's Talk About Sex by Hannah Witten. I thought that I was pretty well versed in sex education. I thought I've done a pretty good job of educating myself because the school education system 100% does not educate us properly. But then I read this book and I learned way more new things than I was expecting to, and it's really important. It's not just about sex. It's about your own body and how it functions and what you need to know about it. It's about consent and communication. It's about sex of all different kinds. Sex for pleasure, sex with different kinds of partners, sex with toys, contraceptive, sex to get pregnant. It's about body image. It's about loving yourself. It crosses everything that has core value for young adults to adults to need to know. Whether you are just starting your teenage years and you want to be prepared and learn about your body and yourself and communication and all of that, or you're an adult who feels that the education system has failed you and you want to learn more, this is a great way to get started. I absolutely love the style of it, and it teaches you healthy boundaries, and it's just such a valuable book. It teaches you way more than you think you need to know, but it's really important, and these kind of things should be taught in school. Alright, going back to stories. Next one is The Monstrumologist by Rick Yancey. I will admit to this one, it is a whole series, and I have only read the first one. It's a pretty long read, and I just haven't gotten around to the rest of it, but I do absolutely love it. It was an incredible book, so I don't know why I haven't gotten around to reading the next steps yet, but it's about monsters being in real life. Like, it's scary, but it's not scary. It's really interesting. There's a lot of fake science behind it, but it's also pretty interesting because there is a preface where they talk about how these books actually came into fruition, and if you're a conspiracy theorist, you could be tempted to say that these are actually real stories. So that's also pretty interesting. They're fiction, but are they really fiction? That's kind of the gist of it, but it's really, really interesting, and I really recommend it. And when I finally read the rest of the series, we can talk about it more too. Okay, the next one is a twofer actually, because it's a series and I'm recommending the whole series. So it is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, and then the sequel, A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor. This series was really interesting to me. It's like sci-fi in real life. Like, it's really realistic fiction, but it's like not actually possible, if that makes sense. So there's these statues that are from like space, and I'm really bad at describing it, I guess. The like statues, they're called Carls. Also the president in the books is female, so that's pretty interesting as well. And it's about like these like vlogger guys just seeing that they discovered this statue, and then they become like the face of this whole movement of sci-fi stuff, and they end up working with the president and trying to figure out what's going on and doing all these clues and figuring things out in this dreamscape world, and I highly recommend it. It's really, really interesting. And the last book is The Summer of Letting Go by Gabe Polishner. I actually would recommend this author in general, but she came to my high school when I was younger, and I got a copy of all 3 of her books. I don't know if she has more books by now, maybe, but I have read 3 of her books, and this is the one I decided to officially recommend for you guys, but I do just recommend all of them. But it's really, really sad and heartbreaking and a really good book at the same time. Basically, the main character, she's pretty young, and her brother died when she was supposed to be watching him. He drowned, and now she's watching this new kid babysitting and like dealing with all her trauma and all of that, and this is like years later, and she thinks that he may be a reincarnation of her brother, and that's like the main storyline of it. It's a really interesting book. There's a lot more going on within that as well, but it's really interesting take on trauma, mental health, reincarnation, and I really recommend it. So yeah, if you have read any of these books, comment down below and we can talk about them a little bit, or if you're going to read any of them, let me know when you have, and also let me know which ones seem the most interesting to you and what you're most drawn to, and we can talk about it all in the comments down below. But that's it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah!